Okay, we can get started. I'd like to call us to order and do roll call.
Right. Everyone has their camera on. Good. Okay. Roll call. Member Chaparro is absent this evening. Member Cruz?
Present.
Member Devine? Member Devine? I don't see her. Okay. Member Foster? Okay. I see you there. Member Harper? Thank you. Member Ocaña?
Here.
All right. Member Carobang? Hello. Member Roberts?
Hello.
Hello. All right. And then Co-Vice Chair Graves?
Present.
Co-Vice Chair Moore? There you are. And Chair Barnett.
All right. With that, we can go to item number 2, which is public comment.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to go to item number 3, which is the approval of minutes from our October 28th meeting. And can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
All right. And all those, and well, we'll do roll call. Let's make it easy.
All right. Let's see. Member Cruz?
Yes, approve.
Member Devine. Member Foster?
I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know if it's proper for me to approve or not.
Yeah, that's correct. So you will be an abstention. Member Harper? Okay. Member Ocaña? Okay.
Yes.
Member Carobang?
Approve.
Member Roberts?
I have to abstain.
Okay. Co-Vice Chair Graves?
Approve.
Co-Vice Chair Moore? Okay, and Chair Barnett?
Approved.
Did I forget anybody? I don't think I did. All right. Motion passes. Thank you.
All right. And any public comment to the minutes?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to hand the agenda over to my co-vice chair, Leslie Graves.
Thank you and good evening. We're moving on to item number 4 with CAB announcements. This is a time when any of our CAB members can share announcements. And I don't see a hand raised. Maybe I'll just go around to everyone. Member Carobang, would you have anything? Member Cruz? No. Co-Vice Chair Moore? No. I'm getting waved off of everybody. Member Harper?
I just want to share that I had a great time at the South Park neighborhood cleanup this past Saturday. They also had a listening session with the mayor, police chief. Danielle was there, and Magali, and so it was excellent opportunity for the neighborhood to get together and do the listening session and also get some good work done in the neighborhood.
Great. Thank you, Member Harper. And I believe I saw Member Ocaña say no on passing Chair Barnett.
Just real quickly, today we, because it overlapped, we had the board commission chairs luncheon with the mayor, and I just want to give you a quick overview that some of the council highlights from last night is discussion about the PG&E settlement, over 3,000 surveys. There are obviously some projects that are kind of going to the top. A lot of it has to do with repairs from the fire. One little note here that I did not know is that it's going to cost $14.5 million to rebuild the Fountain Grove Fire Station. And I wanted to give you guys an update that council is going to be hearing this going forward. There's still an opportunity on the city website if you want to submit your input on the survey. And after this meeting, I will also pull up that link and send it to Danielle to get out to everybody, because they're still taking comment and input from the city on that. Upcoming meetings on this issue will be on November 23rd, December 8th, and December, I think, 15th. There's going to be a presentation to council about fire preparedness. And then all of the boards and commissions reported in. I wanted to let this group know in particular, Design Review Board is going to be looking at the water agency and the housing plan that's coming forward from that. And of particular interest as well, the Planning Commission. There is going to be the Journey's End project is scheduled, I believe, for December 8th. And of interest for us is that of the 532 units, 162 will be senior, and the former members of Journey's End will have first priority at those 162 units, which they're going to get constructed first, and they're going to have the first opportunity to consider moving back there. So that's significant for us. And last but not least, and Danielle, you might update folks on this, apparently the mayor and some of the council members are going to be meeting with Dr. Mace to talk about hundreds of people upwards are doing pickup games and soccer games in Northwest and Southwest Park. There's a PSA campaign going on right now, both in English and in Spanish, and I wanted to let you guys be aware of it. It's on the City Santa Rosa's community engagement. Please share this. It's very crucial as we're heading into the holiday season and our weather is picking up for the weekend, that we are letting residents know that we don't want to have our parks closed. And so the PSA kind of goes over all of it, and the city has a whole link of what's allowed and what's not allowed in our parks. But this is a big one because we don't want them closed, but we want people utilizing the parks safely and responsibly and not getting into large groups and doing contact sports with one another. So that's the latest that came in, just letting you guys know from the luncheon or the Zoom call that we had this afternoon.
I will add to that Magali went out a couple of weeks ago with a group of residents from the Rosa CBI and also some youth volunteers from Latino service providers to hand out masks at 2 parks, as well as to provide information to those folks that were out at the parks about the health order, how these soccer and basketball games and tournaments, because there are actual tournaments happening at the parks, are not prohibited under the health order. And particularly of concern is the spectators there. A lot of people not wearing masks. So this is at Southwest Community Park. There was about 200 people there the day she went out. They ran out of masks and they ran out of flyers. They then headed to Place to Play. When they got there, she said there were easily over 400 people at a Place to Play congregating. And at that point, she told her volunteers to turn around and leave, that she didn't want to put them at risk. So they weren't able to do any of that work there at that park. Then the following weekend, officers went out with code enforcement, again, to do more education, to disperse the crowds. And I have to say that, the mayor's talked about this, the chief of police has talked about this. They do not want to issue citations. They would rather close the parks down than issue citations at this point. I think it rained over the weekend, so hopefully that helps a little bit. I haven't heard how this past weekend went. So hopefully the information's getting out. I know that, I've seen the campaign on social media. I know that there has been conversations with getting the information out to our Spanish language radio station. So that will be happening. And also, some of those community groups that are already active in the community, just making sure to remind their friends, family, and neighbors to, hunker down right now and, try to get through this without congregating at the park. I know it's hard, but we want to get out of that purple tier. So lots of work happening behind the scenes to make sure people have that information.
And thank you for that. Member Okonya, was that a question that you had or a follow-up?
I just had a quick question. Is there a flyer that could be emailed to us that we could start sharing
Yeah.
in English and Spanish? We can post it up on the Pulga websites and all that.
Yeah, I will send that out to you guys along with the link to the PG&E survey that Cherie will send.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that question too. Love to have that flyer. Member Foster, did you have a? I could tell that you said no, but you were on mute. There you go. Just so our audience knows. Thank you. And Member Roberts.
Going along with the COVID theme, I just wanted to say that the county is pushing testing really hard, even for people who are asymptomatic. For people who test negative, it helps our numbers to go to the next tier. And people who are asymptomatic but have COVID, it's good that they find out that, so that they could do the quarantine. So yeah, anyone's encouraged to go test, even if you're not having any symptoms at all. It's on the SoCoEmergency.org, that information.
Yeah, thank you for that. And there's quite a few pop-up testing sites available. And that's also on that site that you just mentioned, the SoCoEmergency.org. And I just found out yesterday that, or saw somewhere that the only date that they'll be closing for those pop-up testings will be on Thursday, Thanksgiving, which is November 26th. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I will round out our announcements. I definitely want to acknowledge that this Saturday from 11 to 2 at the Finley Park, the Rec and Parks Department is doing a food donation and gratitude event. If you haven't heard of that, it's called Thank a Hero, Be a Hero, and it is being promoted on their Facebook page and on the city website. It's a drive-through food donation and gratitude event in which our emergency services personnel, fire department, EMTs, some nurses, doctors, I believe, will be there at the event, and it is a good opportunity to hand not only over food, which there are some specific items that they are requesting, but also items of gratitude like cards that maybe children make, and pictures and things like that. So it's although it doesn't say family event, I think that it would be probably suitable for families to go and do a drive-through and get in that spirit of gratitude. It sounds like a really great way to thank folks that are really doing the hard work right now, especially with COVID on the rise. And then also wanted to make mention of this, and later on there might be some questions about different neighborhoods that are meeting. I know that we touched upon that earlier, maybe a month or two ago. And tomorrow, just to bring up that the West End neighborhood is meeting on Zoom tomorrow at 7 o'clock. And so I have that link if anybody wants it, or if it is at the point where some of us are expected to attend some of those neighborhood meetings, I'm happy to attend that one for the West End neighborhood tomorrow, just putting it out there. And I think that wraps it up for, Co-Vice Chair Moore. I can't hear you. And it doesn't look like you're on mute, but it might be.
Sorry, it's my phone.
Okay.
It's my phone. Sorry.
All right.
Can you, when is Dr. Mays meeting with the city about the soccer game? I think that was Chair Barnett.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe the meeting is scheduled tomorrow with the mayor and a couple of key city staff on kind of next steps on what they need to do. And then I'm sure there'll probably be some updates that get sent out.
That would be great, because I know that the Latinx population is being disproportionately affected by COVID. but to hear about these large gatherings is a little disturbing because then it sort of affects that interpretation of disproportionately. In a way, I just would be very interested to hear what Dr. Mays has to say and hopefully what interventions she might be able to implement to help support a more safe practicing environment.
Yeah, and with that too, just it reminds me to follow up and make mention of this. It is confusing out there to the public that like a city just south of us, Roanoke Park, just opened up a new park. And it was publicized and promoted, and pictures were going out with folks going and being there. And, you know, it's confusing enough to know what you can and you can't do and how many people can be at a certain place. But, you know, this pandemic and the virus doesn't necessarily have a border. And so when there's mixed messages from different cities within Sonoma County, that makes it really challenging for folks, I would think, as well. So for whoever needs to know that. So with item number 4, are there any public comments at this time?
There are no hands raised for public comments.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5 is staff updates. So Danielle, I'm going to take it away with that.
Yep. Okay, I just have a few for you this evening, starting with the Community Empowerment Plan update. I am currently working on drafting the report for the Community Empowerment Plan, particularly regarding the listening sessions. I don't know, I was supposed to have a draft by the end of the month to send out to the community for review. However, we have just received a public records request that has taken over my life. So I don't know what that's going to do to my schedule. However, we are hoping to get the final draft of, the final report to City Council by the first meeting in February. So that is coming. It sounds like a long way away, but I can guarantee you that it's not. So it is coming. As Member Harper mentioned, we did have a listening session with the South Park Community Building Initiative on Saturday. It was a great session. We got a lot of great feedback. We will be scheduling a follow-up with that group, both with our staff, but also so one specific session to talk about specific police or law enforcement issues, and then another one for city-related issues. We are having some pretty significant challenges scheduling listening sessions with community groups from our Indigenous and our Asian Pacific Islander communities. We do have contacts for both of those groups. However, we've gone from having that initial dialogue to zero response. So we are still sticking with it, though. We are trying our very best to get those scheduled and completed so we can include that in the final report. Updates on some of the projects that have come out of these listening sessions include the Lowrider patrol car. The Sonoma County Lowrider Council should have the car by early next year, hopefully January, to begin the work on that project. And in addition to that, we're hoping to be able to bring a videographer on board to document that project through the different phases of building the car, as well as interviews with the Lowrider Council members that are involved and city staff that's involved with that project. Ethnic Studies with a Cop. Our last session takes place with the youth on December 1st with a celebration with the same youth on December 8th. After that is wrapped up, we will evaluate the program and are hoping to have evaluation results to bring to the CAB next month at the December meeting. Some other information that I think is useful, which we learned at the Saturday listening session. The chief announced that officers are now required to receive implicit bias training and resiliency training. And I think the piece about the resiliency training that I found most interesting is that training actually really targets their stress and stress level that they have on the job and how to better manage their stress on the job, so that they can, not take it out on anybody that they shouldn't be taking it out on, basically. For lack of a better way of saying that. Additional trainings are being proposed and considered. So we have heard in the listening sessions that racial equity and social justice, actually more focused on the racial equity piece of it, systemic racism and white supremacy culture are all things that community members think would be very valuable, not just for our police department and our officers to go through, but for our staff and council. And another group actually mentioned our boards and commissions as well. So we are in initial conversations around how that would look, not only for the police department, but for all the other groups that I just mentioned. Quick update on the open government ordinance. The ordinance will be introduced to council on December 1st. That will be presented by the city attorney. And we're really excited. It's been 6 years coming. So we're really happy to get that ordinance to council for discussion and hopefully adoption on the 1st. Moving on to NeighborFest. So I know that the CAB was asking for some information about what San Francisco is doing in lieu of holding NeighborFest this year. And before I get into that, I just want to be realistic about what next year is going to look like, and set the expectation for the fact that NeighborFest might not happen next year. So we will have to kind of have a conversation around that at the empowerment subcommittee, I think, in the next couple months or so, to see how we want to move forward. So, but from San Francisco, I did get a chance to speak to Daniel Holmesy, which was really exciting because I haven't spoken to him in a while. They too have suspended their NeighborFest program in San Francisco, but are working on their Block Champion program and their neighborhood hubs. So neighborhood hubs include those kind of anchor institutions in the community and building relationships with various community organizations, businesses, faith-based churches and organizations, health clinics, things like that, to kind of build up those neighborhood hubs. However, they've kind of transitioned their focus from more of that disaster preparedness, preparing for earthquake and fire, to really looking at COVID and how they're addressing the pandemic and how neighborhoods and neighbors can help each other out during this time. They do have community hubs specific to the pandemic and issues that are coming up. And at these different community hubs, they're able to hold testing sites, food distribution, and other services that are really essential for their residents in San Francisco. And so he is going to be putting me in contact with the person in charge of kind of overseeing that. But there are, for those particular community sites, there are those block champions that are involved. And so I need to circle back with him to get that person's contact, so that I can get more information from her as to how they're running those and how their block champions are involved in that. And finally, my last update, our community engagement staff got to attend a workshop by Dr. Robin DiAngelo, who wrote White Fragility. The workshop was called Seeing the Racial Water. We did this a couple weekends ago. And really the workshop focused on race, racism, white supremacy, and white fragility. Our community engagement team has also read the book, White Fragility. And I just really quick, I have my notes here from that workshop, and it was fascinating. It was only 3 hours, so I'm sure we could have gone much longer. But a couple of the kind of broader things that we took out of it are that, and again, this is just touching the surface, is that she mentioned when we talk about racism, we tend to talk about other races or the others, but not the dominant culture. And that's basically, she really developed not just her book, but her entire work and this workshop around white culture and how basically how our country is really entrenched in the white culture. And then she moved through different terms and then got to the concept of white fragility, which really isn't the defensiveness that comes or those initial reactions that come from, being involved in a workshop like this or just talking to someone about racism. It's going deeper in that it's not taking ownership and action to move past that initial reaction. Again, it went by really quick, but our team did have an opportunity to debrief afterwards and think of ways that community engagement, taking what we took out of the out of the workshop, what we could do in our work, and how the information that we learned could really help influence our work. And we had a couple of different ideas that came up. One, just naming those definitions on our website. Really pushing for organization-wide training around race, racism, and that white supremacy culture, and talking to our communications team about how we share some of the data that we have, around, the makeup of our staff, the racial makeup of our staff, the racial makeup of our boards and commissions. We also talked, and Member Harper brought this to my attention. He shared the video that was recently done done with the Petaluma Police Department with a YouTube series called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. And so now we are actually talking and planning for a session like that with our officers from the police department, but also, how can we start to have those conversations organization-wide with our staff? The work that we're doing in the community is very important around this issue, but we also have to be able to address it internally as well. So please note that work is happening internally. We've heard it in the listening sessions, we've heard it in public comment, and also through public comment, one of the community groups actually suggested that it would be a great idea if our boards and commissions could receive this type of training as well. So, a lot of information, but those are my updates for this month.
It looks like we're going to jump right into our member questions around your update. So, Member Cruz.
I have a very important question about the make and model of the Lowrider police car.
Yes, they will be using a retired patrol car, 90, I don't know the year, I can't remember, but it's a Crown Victoria. So they're, what was that?
Surprise, Crown Vic.
Well, so it's being modeled after Stockton, Oakland has one. San Diego has one, and I think Phoenix, I think that was the other city that has one. And so they're all retired patrol cars that have been donated to these community groups. Those community groups build the lowrider, and then in lowrider style, and then they give it back to the police department. And so it's a collaborative effort. So, you know, the police department will work with the group on, the group really wants to stay as close to, you know, the design of the police car. So, you know, using the decal, but they'll probably add things like the engraving, you know, on the accessories, doing a little pinstriping here and there. There will be hydraulics. They'll keep the sirens. They may, I think they'll be redoing some of the interior, and then they'll be putting on the lowrider tires and rims. The one thing we did talk about, I can't remember which, I think it's San Diego actually dedicated their vehicle to one of their fallen officers. And so there was kind of some conversation around the officer that we lost this year to COVID, possibly dedicating the car to her. So we're talking about that too. And if that were the case, one of the members of the council would do artwork on the car, kind of like a mural, for that part of it. But
who is the group that's working with the police? I mean, like,
it's called
who's the group doing?
It's called the Sonoma County Lowrider Council.
Okay, so that group is okay.
Yeah, that group is made up of there's representatives from all lowrider car clubs in Sonoma County, you know, including, I could go on. Just full transparency, my husband's a member and has a lowrider in the club, so. We're really, you know, as a family, we're really excited about it because, you know, the lowrider community tends to get a pretty bad rap, you know, and they actually mentioned this to the chief. They want to be able to meet in the middle with the police department and build that relationship, but show the community that, you know, they aren't just a group of you know, bad guys or gang members, as a lot of community members tend to label them as. And so I think this is going to be a really great opportunity for both the police department and this particular group with this project. It'll be very interesting to see this car. This car is not going to be like an actual like on the ground patrol car out every day. It's
a show car.
It's a show car, yeah.
Is the car going to be named? Is there a name for the car?
We talked about that too, threw out a couple of names. However, I don't want to spoil it. So we will probably reveal that once the car is done. But yes, there will be names.
Who makes that decision what it's called? It might be something you could engage the community in to have a, you know, kind of like Clothe the Cow.
Right,
you know,
right.
Got all their advertising for 20 years, people mailing in, you know, their ideas and sayings. So.
Right. So it will be a decision made. The Lowrider Council and the police department will come up with a good name for it.
Any other questions or comments? Co-Vice Chair Moore.
That was a big, lengthy staff report. Thank you, Danielle. Kind of going back to NeighborFest, can you refresh me if Oakmont has a neighborhood group that has NeighborFest?
They do not have NeighborFest. However, they are a COPE neighborhood. They have been involved with COPE since the beginning of time, basically, since COPE was here in Santa Rosa. They are extremely well organized around preparedness. They have their own COPE team, but I believe, I mean, they are so much further ahead actually in their neighborhood than any other neighborhood in Santa Rosa. Let's just put it that way. One of their residents actually used to be the volunteer coordinator for our COPE program before it went away, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had someone reach out to me asking about that. So
interesting.
I'll get with you offline about
Okay.
some contact information on that.
Okay.
And then,
Quick question, what does COPE stand for?
COPE, Citizens Organizing, Preparing for Emergencies.
This has citizens organized to prepare for emergencies.
Yeah.
I have a couple other questions on a couple of your other updates. Is the city working with the county's new Office of Equity at all?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, not yet.
Is that a plan to do so?
That's a question for Magali. I'll have to get her input on that, and then I can get back to you.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then, with all the different trainings that it sounds like you've, had a lot of great, rich, educational and thought-provoking trainings in the last month. How are those pieces working into what? Like a plan? It sounds like some of the people that have attended those trainings, which, by the way, would be really cool if maybe the CAB could be privy to those and invited. I don't know if there's a cost, but at least offered. I might be willing to pay the cost, to participate. Because, when people say, oh, the boards and commissions should get this training and that training and this training,
right?
It would be, of course, I think training and being lifelong learners, especially individually and as a group, is really important to continuing our work together as a community. But it would also be really nice to be a part of that decision.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering where all this feedback is going and how it's being synthesized and decided on how that will then, those recommendations will move forward.
The recommendations for...
Well, I missed the doctor's name, but the book I think was called White Fragility.
Yep.
Just as that is an example, because I think you cited a couple of different trainings, the CAB should get, not the CAB, but boards and commissions should get this training and that training and this training.
Yeah.
All good, but who's making that decision? And where's that info going?
So our own team, Magali, for example, made the decision for our team to get this training, but the boards and the commissions, I think at this point it's up to each individual board and commission to decide whether or not they want to receive that training right now. It could be that when we do our community empowerment plan final report, when we report out what we have heard at our listening sessions to council, then the council might direct various staff members to move that training forward and make it a requirement. So city clerk's office would most likely make that a requirement for all the boards and commissions. And the city council, right? It would be a decision that they would have to make, is this something that we want to put money into? Because there is a cost to those trainings, and we wouldn't expect our board and commission members or even our city council members to, foot the bill for that individually. The city would pay for that. So it would have to be a decision coming from city council as to whether or not they want to put the money behind that and then require everyone to take it. But right now, at this particular time, it's up to you guys.
Well, it's up to us, but what venue how will that be presented prior to a council?
Yeah.
Will that information come to us formally to take a vote as a recommendation to the council, or what's the process?
So if the CAB decided they wanted to participate in a racial equity training, staff would do the research to find out what's available. who the trainers are, what the cost is, and we would see if we could afford that cost within the budget, and then bring it to the CAB, either during one of the regular meetings or during a special meeting of the CAB.
So I know that Member Harper had his hand, or I saw maybe flying a fly, but I think that you wanted to say something in regards to what was just being talked about. I had that feeling. Is that true?
Yeah, about the overall report, I just remembered something when you were talking about the Lowrider club. And Alma Magallon from South Park was sharing a story on Facebook about how her son, they went to a well child visit, and the doctor asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he said that he wanted to be a policeman. And so she was shocked because he's always wanted to be a soccer player. And then she said that they asked him, so why do you want to be a policeman? She said, because Chief Navarro came to my neighborhood and talked to us. It was such a cool story. I'll share it with you if I
Yeah, please.
If I did. Yeah, but it was really unique, and it really speaks to what you were talking about in terms of those relationships that can happen. So
yeah.
Member Okonya, I know you're next. Thanks, Member Harper, for bringing that up. That's fun.
So I wanted to thank Co-Vice Chair Moore for kind of digging into the nitty-gritty of this idea of the participation in the racial sensitivity training. And I'm wondering if what the end game is something similar to the required training for sexual harassment seminars. Is that something that the city's considered, or are we really at the very beginning stages of that?
Oh yeah, we're at the very beginning stages of this. This, I can definitely, almost positively say that this will be one of our recommendations coming forward out of the report, just because of how many times it has come up in the listening sessions and public comment. But then there's like the what next. And so it's up to the council to decide, okay, here's the recommendations, what do we want to prioritize? And then once we get those priorities, then we can start to really go deep into what that looks like.
And any other questions or comments? Trying to catch everybody. Member Carobang? No. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I want to just add to what Member Okonya and Member Moore, Co-Vice Chair Moore. I have to read because I can't even remember the whole title. But I do want to add my encouragement for the boards, commissions, and also some community partners to share in that kind of training. And maybe there's, there's funding outside of the city that will help community partners. But the whole getting us used to talking to each other about sticky situations like that is just a skill that everybody should learn to do. I would love to learn to do that better. So I'm all for that too. And I guess that's it.
Great. I don't see Member Foster or Member Roberts. Did you have anything you wanted to? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just making sure that I catch people because I can't see everybody on the screen all at once sometimes. If you make a motion, and Chair Barnett, did you? No. Okay. I just would quickly say that in agreement, but I do understand the order of things and that how taking this to the full council and having a decision around the empowerment plan will be beneficial to have then all of the commissions and boards be involved if that decision comes through. So I'm looking forward to it. And I also really want to appreciate you, Danielle, not only for a really thorough update, but also you did send out on the email a opportunity for us as individuals to attend kind of a training along these lines of racial bias. that I signed up for, and I encourage others too, but I'm not quite sure how that works if more than a quorum of us attend. So I understand there might be some challenges with that, but just to let you know, I will be going to that. I think it was on December 1st, and I look forward to it. So with that, so we have no other questions or comments from the members. Can we go to public comment?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Great, thank you so much. And at this time, we will move on to item number 6 and hand it over to Co-Vice Chair Moore.
Great, thank you, Leslie. Agenda item 6.1, Multicultural Roots Project for the December 2020 stories. It's kind of more just a reiteration of the agenda item. In December, we will highlight 6 stories, 3 historical places or people, and 3 Black, Indigenous, people of color, the BIPOC community leaders. We will be reading these stories prior to the meeting and come with any feedback or questions. The CAB will also be asked to share these stories as they come out with their community, and neighborhood contacts. Sorry. So just kind of more of an announcement agenda item of what's coming.
So I actually have a presentation to walk you guys through. I had a little bit more together this time. So if you could cue up the presentation, please, before we get into the discussion. All right. Multicultural Roots Project. Next slide, please. So just as a quick reminder, the goals of the project are to create visibility for BIPOC in Sonoma County, with a particular focus on Santa Rosa, and to recognize through historical stories from BIPOC contributions and impacts that have shaped Santa Rosa and Sonoma County. Next slide, please. So I know I said that the agenda says December stories, but I didn't want to include just December when I wasn't able to put the slides together for November. So I included the November slides too. And hopefully you have seen some of the stories so far in our City Connections newsletter and on the website. So next slide, please. So for November, we highlighted Gilbert Gray in our first story. Mr. Gray co-founded the NAACP with Platt Williams in 1953. He was the only Santa Rosa resident to attend and participate in the March on Washington in 1963. He, along with several other community members, participated in a sit-in at the Silver Dollar Saloon on 4th Street and Mendocino Avenue. And then they also participated in local demonstrations to protest Jim Crow laws and racial segregation, both nationally and locally. He, along with his wife Alice, established the Curly Gray Foundation at Montgomery High School, in addition to the Gray Family Foundation. And with help from the community, donated $25,000 to the NAACP National Scholarship Program. He also happens to be my step-grandfather, so I knew him before he passed away. He was a fantastic man. Next slide, please. Platt Williams, who we will be highlighting this week, was also the co-founder of the NAACP along with Mr. Gray and served as the very first chapter president. He also participated in that sit-in at the Silver Dollar Saloon. And the protests and demonstrations locally and nationally. He also served as campus supervisor at Annalee High School in his retirement years, mentoring youth. He attended football games, he attended dances. When he retired, he wasn't quite ready to retire, and so he decided to volunteer his time with youth. Next slide, please. John Richards is another person we highlighted this month. John Richards was born a slave in 1824. Became free as an adult after he paid a fee to earn his freedom or gain his freedom. He moved to Santa Rosa and opened up a barber street next to the Santa Rosa House, which was a hotel on Second and Main Street. He went on to own 2 additional barbershops, one in, I think it was Petaluma, and the other one was in Ukiah. During this time, in his time in Santa Rosa, he owned 130 acres of land, which would eventually become the South Park neighborhood, and he and his wife took in freed slaves who did not have a place to live when they came to Santa Rosa. He also adopted 2 children along with his wife. Next slide, please. Part of the Multicultural Roots Project is also highlighting our current community leaders. And these are leaders that are doing great work currently in the community. And our first 2 that we will be highlighting, first one is Rafael Vasquez. Rafael is a community advocate and EOPS outreach specialist at the Santa Rosa Junior College. He hosts a radio show called Líderes del Futuro, or Leaders of the Future. He created a book for immigrant parents called, I apologize, my Spanish is terrible, Logrando tus sueños, or Achieving Your Dreams. He also contributed to the development of SRJC's Dream Center, which helps youth immigrants who receive DACA. And he created a journal called Fulfilling the Dream, a daily journal towards success. And he will also be highlighted this week in the City Connections newsletter. Next slide, please. Our other community leader we'll highlight this month is Joy Iodeli. Joy began her work as a community organizer actually this past summer. She had never organized a protest before, but knew she wanted to do something to address racial inequity and injustice. She created an organization called What We Are Fighting For, which provides resources for local youth on community issues, racial inequity, ballot measures, and more. And she is also involved with the effort to integrate ethnic studies in Santa Rosa schools. Next slide, please. Now on to our December 2020 stories. And again, a reminder, we do have a project advisory group that decides on which stories to highlight each month. So our AmeriCorps Vistas conduct research on various historical stories, as well as they conduct interviews with our current community leaders and also help us brainstorm additional stories and additional community members to focus on. So next slide, please. So for this month, we will be highlighting Jesse Love. Mr. Love was a World War II veteran. He fought at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, and in other battles in the South Pacific during World War II. In 1951, he joined Reverend Washington E. Boyce and Reverend Dotson to organize the Community Baptist Church, which is now located on Sonoma Avenue. In 1952, he became the second black deacon in Santa Rosa, to be ordained in Santa Rosa, He was a charter member of the Santa Rosa-based Chapter 23 of Pearl Harbor Survivors Association. He was also a chaplain for the Theodore Roosevelt Post number 21 of the American Legion and a member of the Free and Accepted Masons. This is just a really brief overview of his story. His story is filled with a lot of information. So again, all of these stories are filled with a lot of information. So please make sure you check them out. They will be posted to our website and in City Connections newsletter, as well as we're working on getting them on our social media platforms as well. Next slide, please. So we took a different approach this month, and in addition to highlighting community leaders, we're also highlighting certain places and events that happened in Santa Rosa. The first of the 2 places we'll highlight this month are the Dole, and totally apologize if I mess this up, but the Dole Carobang statues, which are actually right across the street from City Hall at the entrance to Ray Park. They were given to the city of Santa Rosa in 2003 by Santa Rosa's sister city, Jeju, in South Korea. The statue names translate to grandfather made of stone. The sister cities, so we've been sister cities with Jeju since 1996 and have engaged in international dialogue, enhanced co-productive knowledge, promote benevolence and contribute to a better world to thrive in our relationship with them. In addition to that, we had a cultural youth exchange program where youth have participated in various projects, including art, sports, educational, economical, municipal, and professional opportunities. Next slide, please. So the next story that will be highlighted in December is Santa Rosa's Chinatown. A lot of people do not know, including myself, that we had Chinatown here in Santa Rosa. This was a neighborhood that existed in the early 1900s till about 1930s, 1940s. It was located on 2nd Street between Santa Rosa Avenue and D Street. Approximately 200 people lived in this neighborhood, and it was a center for Chinese heritage and traditions, including business, gambling and opium dens, playing lottery tickets, celebrations, and connectedness within the neighborhood. Property and buildings were owned by the Hammett family and the Bisorti brothers. And around the 1930s, 1940s, these two groups actually started to sell the property. And unfortunately, it displaced all of the residents that lived in Chinatowns and also displaced their businesses as well. They were replaced with modern buildings and businesses. So what you see today is part of that, although not all of it, obviously, because building and such happened since then. But this picture right here is one of the restaurants, and actually this particular restaurant stuck around. I can't remember when it finally closed, but it did actually survive that sale of the property and the addition of the modern buildings and businesses. Believe it closed in the 90s. I'm sure.
I think you say 1988.
Yeah. 1988. Okay, thank you. I don't have them up, but thank you.
Danielle, on the Chinese in California, I think there were laws on the books that prevented them from even owning property.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's kind of the point that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and again, lots of information in the stories. I'm trying to give you some of the information. I don't want to spoil all of it, so please read the stories if you haven't. Next slide, please. All right, so December's, I can see you. December's current community leaders will be, first one is Arthur B. Cheney, who is the president of 100 Black Men of Sonoma County. Prior to retirement, so he worked as a child support officer in San Francisco, and then afterwards became a peace officer with the Santa Rosa Police Department. He attended Santa Rosa Junior College, where he received his Associates of Arts in Administration of Justice, and then went to Sonoma State, where he received his Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice. He, as I mentioned, he is now the president of the 100 Black Men of Sonoma County. And just a little bit of information about them. They're a national organization that started in New York City that has over 100 chapters globally. And the Sonoma County chapter was founded in 1990. Their focus is really around mentoring of our youth, so mentoring in education, economic empowerment, leadership development, and health and wellness. They have a scholarship program where they offer between $500 and $3,000 per student to help with college expenses. And recently they've gotten involved here in Sonoma County, particularly in Santa Rosa, around the Black Lives Matter movement, having meaningful conversations with community members around racism and social justice. And so back to Mr. Cheney here, he has a team player philosophy. He says the success of 100 Black men has been accomplished as a team. And in addition to his community work, he was awarded Police Officer of the Year from both the Optimist International and the Exchange Club. He received 3 gold meritorious awards from the California Legislative Assembly, State Senate, and the City of Santa Rosa. Next slide, please. And our other, I think I mentioned that we would be doing 3 historical stories and 3 current leader stories in the agenda, and actually the project advisory group on Monday decided to only highlight 2 current leaders. And so the next one that we will be highlighting in December is Rose Hammett. So in her interview, she said, walking life with an open mind is easy, but walking life with an open heart is the hard part. So Rose is Pomo, Wailaki, and Mayadu descent, and identifies as Indigenous because it encompasses and honors where she is from and her ancestors. She teaches her students about traditional plants, languages, ceremony, art, and other cultural traditions. She says she strives to create spaces where people can share who they are and use her platform to share her culture wholeheartedly. Building relationship with non-natives and allyships leads to trust and more authentic and heartfelt connections. As a leader in the community, she has something to uphold and knowledge to provide. She encourages non-natives to do their research, connect with people from the culture and ask appropriate questions, learn whose land you're on, and find the best way to honor them. The Native community deserves to be uplifted, supported, engaged in important dialogue, and have a platform to advocate for themselves and be a part of the change in the community. Next slide, please. And those are the stories we'll be highlighting in December. Thank you for listening to me as I go through also the November ones. I think it's important, even though we talked a little bit about it last time, that we get to see the faces that go with the names. The project advisory group also spent time on Monday brainstorming additional ideas. For future stories, including one of the things that we realize is a lot of the publications that and articles that we continue to find on these individuals and events are very male dominated, and so the group spent a lot of time on Monday brainstorming female community members who were very actively involved in things like the civil rights movement and other community work, both historically and current. So we'll be adding that to the list that we came up with last month here at the CAB meeting. So please know that we still have that list. We're still making our way through. I'm working with our vistas on utilizing names from that list moving forward. And I will stop now and turn it back over to you guys.
Thank you so much, Danielle. This is so awesome to get all these stories out in the open, get us thinking about our past. Do any of the CAB members have any comments or questions? Member Cruz?
I just want to add another name to your list, Danielle.
Thank you.
Carol Ellis.
Carol Ellis.
Yes, she's a long time Black leader here, so not just in education, women, the whole 9 yards. Another question I have is, who is proofing these bios? I mean, like, had the luxury and opportunity to know Jesse Love and also Arthur, which Arthur's still here, but Jesse passed away. But I did read everything, and I just wondering, like, how far back, how old is the oldest member of their advisory committee? Because there's some things in there I just kind of feel could be double checked.
Well, I mean, I don't want to out anybody for their age, but
no, I mean, it's like, how far? I mean, I'm old. I mean, like, I'm hitting close to 60, but it's like, I've been around here for quite a while, and so you just kind of end up knowing a lot of people.
I can tell you that the information about Jesse Love came from the book Glimpses, which was written by Anne Gray Bird, but also filled in by some additional research that was done by our Vista. So that information came directly from her book, at least. And then, the project advisory group is I feel a pretty well-rounded group. I think there might be like one or two like younger members, but most of them are middle-aged on up.
Okay.
Is my guess. Including the names are on the website, so I can say Alicia Sanchez is on this group, and as is a couple members of the NAACP who have not typically had a role in projects like this, so we wanted to give them an opportunity for that.
I will just email you or call you.
Thank you.
Member Harper had his hand up.
I just had you might have said this before, but where does this end? Is there a certain number that you're trying to get to in terms of stories, or is it just ongoing until?
Yeah, it's an ongoing, so we don't have a goal or a number. We will evaluate the project after 6 months and see where we stand, see if it's resonating in the community. One community member the other day, or one project advisory group member the other day actually suggested creating a book with all of the stories, even the ones that we don't use every month. So we provide them with 10 every month, and then they get to select which ones to highlight. We do keep the ones that they haven't selected for possible future use, but all of these stories are so great that that they don't want to lose sight of the ones that we haven't used, and so they suggested putting a book together of these stories, which I think is a fantastic idea, so we'll look into that.
Nice. And then I had another thought about, have you thought of recording these? So having once they're typed out, have them narrated, recorded somewhere, and then people could, so you have a couple different venues, so they can read it, or they can go to a website and click on a link and it takes them to that immediately to that story, maybe a picture. So not to give you more work, but
yeah, thanks, Vince. No, yeah, that's a great idea. I hadn't thought about that, but we will add it to our list. I know my Vistas are actually listening in right now, so maybe they can do it.
Member O'Connor.
Thank you very much for reading all those. I think they're fascinating. And I think a book is a fantastic idea. And I'm wondering if the city wouldn't consider partnering with one of the news agencies. I would say Sonoma Media has more money to collaborate on this project with, but I also think that Bohemian would be, an invaluable news source. And I say this because I comment off of Member Cruz that I think it's really important that the partnership groups that we're working with have the oversight of professional journalists that might assist them in the actual research project. So if this went to book form, I don't know how necessary that is to you do it right now, but if it did go into book form sponsored by the city of Santa Rosa, I think it would be invaluable to have some kind of local news agency working in that collaboration to make sure that we're providing correct information, that we've got all of the people that we need to include in there and whatnot. And I think it'd be great for the kids as well.
Okay. I believe member Carobang had her hand up earlier. Do you have any comments?
Thank you. Yeah, so I like the comments so far about this, and I also think of maybe highlighting these people, the ones who are living, and even the ones who aren't, like honoring them throughout the city. And I would like almost to have one come to a CAB meeting and maybe spend 5 minutes, so I'm very drawn to Rose Hammett, for instance, and I'm sure that she probably has a lot of stories from her culture to tell. And so to have, and I think it goes along with the reading of and not just the narration of what's being written, but do something live, and then think of people who maybe do kind of visual arts and honoring them too, culturally, how they shift and change us.
Mute, unmute, sorry. Co-Vice Chair Graves, did you have a comment, question?
Yeah, again, thank you so much for all the work that everybody's putting into this, and it's pretty remarkable. And I have a little bit of experience working in a group that wanted to put out a book, and we ran into a number of challenges. Printing is always a little bit more expensive than most people think. And there's lots of challenges to get things printed. So I would just bring up the fun and sometimes more accessible alternative to that is a calendar, because folks love calendars. They're very useful and functional. And not only can you highlight stories, but you can actually highlight birthdays or special events during a calendar that those people that are being recognized were involved with, or let's say the founding of the NAACP or different organizations. So they tend to work really well for this type of a project. So I just want to bring that up as an alternative, although I don't want to dismiss the book idea, because I know when folks get a hold of a book idea, they love it and they want to see it all the way through. I also want to bring up a couple other names, which I'm sure that you already have one at least, is Nancy Rogers, completely phenomenal in our community. And I look forward to seeing, as you mentioned, women. That was one of the things that struck me as I was looking at all the stories, is just the need for more women to be visible within them. And so another female that I would bring forward would be Jaden Lim. And she's a member of our Indigenous community and also one of the youth ambassadors at the California Indian Museum and Cultural Center, of which her mother is actually the executive director, and her aunt is one of the California Native American lawyers for a number of very important issues here in California. So I do have contact information if you need. And I think that the California Indian Museum and Cultural Center often gets overlooked as a resource in our community. So I would definitely want to bring that organization forward. So you said that you had some difficulty contacting different Indigenous groups, and I know that they don't live in a silo. There's a number of Indigenous tribes to this area, and there's also a number of Indigenous tribes that are coming into the area in the more recent years that would benefit from being highlighted as well because of different language issues that are going on, accessibility issues. So I do have some contacts with that as well. And love the idea of the audio. By the way, when I was watching your slides, it reminded me that you had mentioned that these stories would be potentially part of the city council meeting breaks. And so I had assumed in my head, in my vision of it, was that the slides like that would be presented and there would be an audio with them.
Oh.
So that was just something that clicked for me. And to let everybody know, now that I am one of the writers for the Sonoma County Gazette, I had checked in with Danielle last month, and for the Santa Rosa Snippets column that I'm writing, there is a mention and some information about the Multicultural Roots Project and the first two stories that were brought forward. So that was Gilbert Gray and John Richards. And so I'm trying to just amplify that a bit out in the community, that the Multicultural Roots Project is happening and driving people to the website and further to the social media pages and whatnot.
Thank you, Co-Vice Chair Graves, for all that information. Are there any other CAB member comments or questions on this item? I'm not seeing any. Danielle, any final closing remarks?
No. These are really great suggestions, and I'm going to take these back to Magali and let her know that these are additional suggestions. I will add the suggestions also for additional people to highlight. So thank you for mentioning those. And yeah, you know, I love the audio idea in addition to the book idea. It's a matter of who will do it and when. So thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. Okay, moving on to agenda item 6.2, the CAB orientation document and mentor program description presented by the CAB expertise subcommittee. I happen to be a member of that, but I believe that member Cruz might be presenting that information. Danielle?
Yeah, hold on. I'm really sorry, but I forgot. We need to ask if there was public comment for item 6.
Oh, of course. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Going back to 6.1 on the Multicultural Roots Project, are there any public comments on this item?
There are currently no hands raised for public comment.
Okay, thank you for that procedural redirection.
Mm-hmm.
Moving back to 6.2, and I don't know if Danielle will be reporting out or Member Cruz. I missed the expertise meeting, so I can't do that.
Danielle, I can do the overview of the meeting if you want to go over the orientation packet.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so we met on November 4th, our subcommittee expertise, and we talked about finalizing the CAP orientation packet, and we made very few changes. So Daniel will go over that with you. We also talked about potentially starting up a mentorship program, getting something lined up for the new CAB members that are going to be coming on board at the beginning of the year due to the elections. And we felt like there was a need to keep it light and not so formal and rigid, but more flexible, taking seasoned cab members and pairing them with the new cab members to be a resource to them, to show them the ropes, ask their questions, field their questions, and just be there to support them and getting them oriented to the cab organization and what our goals are and our strategic plan and all the things that we have been working on. So with that, and we also had an additional question at our meeting from a community member about banners for neighborhoods, but after discussing it for a moment, we felt like it would better that Danielle would contact a more appropriate department to handle that particular request. And that is our small report, and I'm handing it over to Danielle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm on mute. Does everybody have the orientation packet document in front of them? All right. So just to run through this, I'm not going to read it verbatim. We have an introduction here in the packet, who to contact, which obviously if I were to run away and never come back, that would change. Introduction and mission, so outlining the mission of the CAB as well as the city charter requirements for the CAB, and then the duties and responsibilities that are under the city charter. So when you read through all of those actually do come from the city charter language. So those are outlined on page 2. Moving on to page 3, it's an overview of the strategic plan. So it just takes that strategic plan document and condenses it down into smaller pieces here and what we're currently focusing on. We do mention we didn't want to get into the operations subcommittee or the operations strategy because that work had been completed. And then that group was merged into the expertise group. But we do make a quick comment about that in here. So again, the empowerment strategy and expertise strategy as they stand currently and what these groups are working on. And then moving into bottom of page 3 and page 4, it goes over just the requirements. So requirements like training through the city clerk's office. I also added the city clerk has the last boards, commissions, and committees orientation training on their website. And so I included the link to that in this packet. They do this training, I believe, every other year. So, or when they're able to get to it. And so once they do the new one and post that new video, then I will go ahead and change the link. But for now, it's the one they did in 2019. And then responsibilities or requirements as they pertain to working with city staff on their oath of office, and then going through the orientation. Which, by the way, I want to mention we do have several spots open now. Some positions that are up for either reappointment and new council members coming in. So it's up to those council members if they want to decide to keep those appointments or make new appointments. So that could potentially happen. So if your appointment is coming up here at the end of December, please let me know right away via email if you plan to stay with the CAB. And like to be reappointed. Probably around February, I will do at our February meeting, do a full CAB orientation with the entire board so that we can capture those new members and all of you seasoned members can have a recap of that orientation. And then finally, your responsibilities as a CAB member are listed here. So that is what we included in this orientation packet or document. The subcommittee did have a chance to go through it, made one change, I think, or just very small changes to it, and wanted to bring it to the board for approval. So I think approval and just feedback. So if you have any, we'll take care of that now, and then hopefully approve this so we can start using it with our new CAB members coming on.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments on this document from the CAB members?
Hey.
Co-Chair Graves?
Hey, thank you. This looked great, and I might be just completely missing it. I tried to look over it earlier today, right before we got on. Does it have to mention anything about districts? Is that?
It doesn't, because we
Okay.
don't have any information yet about districts.
Okay, all right. That's all.
Okay.
Member Carobang, did you have a question? Thank you.
Thank you. I was hoping you didn't see my hand, but I will just say that what struck me is the inclusion, and I would imagine this is, this is kind of not really, well, it didn't sound like it was a living document, that things would come in and out of it. Is that true? And then secondly, if not, if it's sort of this orientation standard, then it's interesting that the strategic plan let me just see what they are. The two committees' strategic plans, really, that we're working on, they have shifted a bit since we had the strategic plan. And I think that's good, because I think we, new things come up and it's good to have it, but there's, work goes very slowly. So to keep that momentum as well, maybe identifying the overarching things that are always going on, and then kind of new projects. And I can speak for empowerment strategy only, but it was a little confusing to see that as part of the expertise, although I think the strategic plan and our outcomes, it makes sense that they were in there. How we're interpreting them is what I'm speaking to right now. And as long as it's a living document, I think it's fine that we can change, but I'm not sure a standard is meant to do that.
No, it's a living document for sure, because things are going to change. Co-Vice Chair Graves brought up districts. I'm sure that information will be included. As you move through these strategies and the work changes, I'm sure that the only thing that will stay the same is that charter language. That will definitely, unless the city council decides to remove the CAB from the charter, but keep the CAB, and the focus is just on that strategic plan, then we'll remove all the charter language and just focus on that strategic plan, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
I do, though, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I haven't looked at the mission statement that we came up with, and it seems like it's truncated here. Is this the full mission statement that
That's the full mission statement.
Okay.
The vision is that really long. So
Okay.
I didn't include that because that's actually I think 3 or 4 paragraphs long.
Yeah,
I can,
that makes sense.
but yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
More comments or questions about this document? I don't see any, and I myself have a comment on it. I believe that the charter will be up for review in 2022, I think.
Yep.
Chair Barnett mentioned to me, and I'm wondering if in thinking about this document and what it summarizes, and thinking kind of proactively to the future that the council will be probably considering, like you said, whether the CAB will be part of the charter or maybe defined outside the charter, that maybe during 2021, we make it an agenda item, definitely within the expertise subcommittee, but maybe at the level of the CAB as well, how we as a board see ourselves in the next reiteration of the CAB. I think that, you know, we get a lot of input from the community, from staff, from city council, but sometimes I think it's important to get some input from us, how we see ourselves and where we'd like to go in the future. So perhaps that I might be sort of preempting the future agenda item suggestions, but as it relates to this document and thinking of the context of where it sits and its intention, and like you said, it's a fluid living document, I'd like to propose this idea, and I'm not sure how to categorize where that would fit, Danielle, in terms of sort of I guess an agenda item. Oh, okay, so for the document as it sits now, the expertise committee is asking us to approve this orientation packet with the caveat that it is a living document and subject to updates. May I get public comment on the document? Oh, Member Foster.
So I'm curious, and maybe I missed something, but as far as the discussion on the mentorship program, is that going to be included in the final version, or is that something that's been discussed and decided?
No, that's actually going to be something separate from this. So this is just informational for new members coming on, and then the mentorship piece will, I think that, Veronica or Member Cruz, correct me if I'm wrong, the membership is, or the mentorship is, that piece of it will be kind of what the mentor's responsibilities will be, and then like how many mentors we'll have, how many mentees.
Yes, I think that we were, while we were discussing it at the subcommittee level, we were feeling that we need to take this to the full CAB board to see if there was interest to have a mentorship program, because
that's right.
We thought maybe people's plates were full and they couldn't, we couldn't take it on, but and maybe we didn't have enough seasoned or people who felt confident to be a mentor for the new mentees. And I think there's going to be a total of, I don't remember exactly the exact count, 4 new people. Mm-hmm. And then when we were looking at people that have been on CAB for over a year, but then we felt like, well, there's very competent people who haven't been on for a year, but we wanted the CAB to decide, do we want to move forward with a mentorship light program where it wasn't so very structured and making any additional requirements on the CAB member, but just be a resource to that new CAB person. So that's the second part of this conversation. This is just to approve this document, and then the question will be on the table, do we want to have a membership program, to see what everyone's thinking.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I just brought it up. It's on the agenda, and I don't know if we kind of brushed past it. Obviously, I think it's important for new members to, be able, I spoke with Danielle earlier today, and, just to have somebody to answer questions maybe a go-to person, not necessarily take them. You know how difficult it is. I'm training a new agent right now, and it's very time consuming and really eats into, you know, my productivity. So I was just curious where that was.
I also wanted to mention is like we can also kind of alleviate if people have time, and like you said, a go-to person, someone to kind of help show the ropes to help alleviate some of the stuff that Danielle gets bombarded with. So it kind of has two purposes. Hopefully that would be good for Danielle.
I get that. I mean, I felt guilty even, you know, getting her on the phone and having a few-minute conversation. I know how busy
That's okay.
she's got a lot on her plate.
We have a motion on the floor right now to approve or not approve, or is that where we are? Are we?
Yeah, so let's deal with the orientation packet first, and then we can discuss the mentorship piece of it after the packet's done.
Okay, so to piggyback off of what Member Cruz was saying, do we have a motion to approve the CAB orientation packet for new members?
Yes.
Was there public opportunity for public input?
Thank you. I'm getting off because we're shooting in. I asked for that, but then we had another comment. Are there any comments from the public on this item?
There are no hands raised for public comments.
Thank you for monitoring that. Okay, so no further comments. Again, requesting the motion to approve this.
So,
I know Member Foster said that he would make the motion. Is there a second? Member Harper.
Okay.
Okay.
Member Harper. Okay. All in favor? Should I do a roll call or can we do hands?
Just hands is fine.
Okay.
All right.
Looks like the majority of pass. Thank you. And did we want to go ahead and visit the mentorship program right now, or table that for another conversation?
I'm personally satisfied that, you know, this can be taken up later on. I don't need any further information personally.
I would.
Danielle.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was waving goodbye to Member Ocaña. Sorry.
Okay. Member Cruz?
We discussed this quite a bit at our subcommittee meeting, so I really would be curious to know what other CAB members are thinking about having a semi-formal CAB mentorship program. Is it something that people have the bandwidth for, knowing that we have new CAB members coming on?
Member Co-Vice Chair Graves?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea, and with that, if I say an idea is really good, I will make time to be a part of that, and as much as to answer questions, but also just to make someone feel really welcome. I know when I was able to walk into the room this time last year, knowing people in the room, but that isn't always the case. To know other board members, and with a number of new members coming on board, if we can make people feel more welcome and feel like they are connected in some way, it's really, we can't move through everybody's stories fast enough for people to share a little bit about themselves. It seems like we're always pressed for time, so just having that connection to a member, I think would be invaluable to have someone then feel like they're invested. So I would definitely put energy behind it myself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Member Roberts?
My initial thought was that it's not really necessary since there's just not it's just not that complicated to serve on a board. But then I was thinking, I feel like there could be better connections with CAB members. I'm on some other boards, and there's a lot more socializing and other events where we can get together and bond more. So I think this could be a good opportunity for that. And I would also, separate from mentorship, I would also hope down the line that there's other stuff we can do. Probably has to wait till in person, but to connect the board members more.
Further comments on this? Member Carobang?
I just want to echo Keith's comments. You know, we are a community board, and I like the idea of building community among us. You know, it can just be socializing to sort of get to know each other. And I found out last CAB meeting that you're all pretty much connected. And I don't know you like you all know each other. So I thought that was a beautiful thing to hear that. And I felt a little sad myself, but I think it's easily remedied by, you know, just sort of getting to know each other individually or in threes or something. So I like that idea. I also feel like we've gotten a lot more formal, and I'm trying, but it's hard for me because I think because it's a community based group that I think the informality is kind of nice, but I'm happy to go with.
That darn Brown Act. Just kidding.
I have a comment to contribute to this, and that is I've had some opportunity to get some questions that I've had about the CAB from Chair Barnett. And one of the things that has been hugely impactful to me in my conversations with her is learning about the history of where the CABs come for the past, 5 to 8 years. Because some of my questions pertain to why do we do this? Why do we do that? Why is it this way? And she's able to provide that context of kind of why we've arrived to where we are. And I feel like that kind of information is really useful because one question answered by her can kind of answer 20 that then come up intermittently in the future. And so in addition to the social connection and the welcoming aspect that I know that we want to do through the mentor program, I would also appreciate, and this isn't to be back into that formal zone, but maybe just sort of a summary of the history of why do we have a strategic plan? That's actually a new thing. Or, like what was it before that, like Cecile and Cherie experienced, but I don't share that experience. I only know what I know now. But I think context of the history of the CAB as we've evolved and grown is really important. And so it would be great to have that summary, even though I didn't live it, to then be able to introduce it to a new member. So, it could be something as a 5-minute, type up a summary, no big deal, but I'd like to kind of have that history written down. Okay, Member Cruz.
I really would like to show that and build relationships within the CAB membership. We change members so frequently. It seems like we don't get to know them, and it's kind of a way to make the group smaller by pairing people up, and you kind of get connected right away and you feel included. But when I first came, I'm not really sure. I came at a time where right before the strategic planning, and I didn't really know what anything meant, and it was hard to get the lingo. And so this one document is going to be very, very helpful to those new CAB members. And I just feel like if we are about connections, that the easiest and first connection we can make is just between ourselves, and it would just maybe make this group even more tight and cohesive when we finally do get to do community events. You know, there will be more likelihood to, oh yeah, so-and-so is going to go, maybe I want to, you know, help that person out. There's more of a connection. So relationships are important, and I hope that we want to do this to help the new CAB members, and it might help us keep CAB members, because I don't know why people leave. They just all of a sudden they're not there anymore, and you don't really know the reason why. So I hope so, and I guess after we discuss this, I would really like to know who would be willing to be a mentor.
Danielle, did you want to comment on that, on any of those questions? Okay.
Nope.
So right now, per our agenda, we're to see if we approve this CAB orientation packet.
Oh, Vice Chair, Member Foster, I think had a comment or a question. Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to follow up on everybody's comments. I mean, essentially, I came into this board right in the middle of COVID. And, you know, I'm sure that in the past, at least you met in person. So there's a big difference. I'm a people person, and, you know, I get to know people by discussing things in person. This whole Zoom thing is very new to me, and it's different. So, I mean, we're at a disadvantage to start with coming in. And if you've got 4 or 5 new members coming in, unless you know them, you know, socially or otherwise, you know, you're at a real tough starting point. So I don't know how you can make that better, but it's something that should be considered by this group, you know, how to bring somebody in, and whether it's one person meeting with them prior to the first board meeting and kind of giving them a little heads up on, you know, procedurally how this all works, and, you know, who the players and what the overall game plan is, because it's taken me 3 meetings just to feel a little bit comfortable and getting to know all of you visually. And you know, it's a big difference than, you know, meeting in person and having that initial contact. That's all I was thinking as you were discussing, you know, kind of going forward with the mentor program, because, you know, before you mentor somebody, I think, you know, just getting to know each other is important.
Great, and I'm sorry, my screen was too small. I didn't see you wanting to comment. Okay, I know. Now I've got the full scope. Any other concluding remarks before I ask for a motion to approve the document as it is?
Oh, we already did that.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, we did.
And vote, so we're done.
We're good.
Okay, we're good. Thank you, Danielle. It's been a long day. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 6.3, the Empowerment Subcommittee update. I'm not sure who will be presenting that.
I might be able to help out a little bit. We have on our subcommittee member Carobang, and was present at the meeting but had to leave a little bit early, so I'm not quite sure if you would be comfortable presenting, because we did a lot of the organizing after you left of this list. But if you, and then also leave it open for member Harper and member Roberts, were also at the meeting. So just for the three of them to potentially give a little report, or one of the three.
So I don't mind sharing, sort of what happened at that meeting, and then you can share the result of the work that was done at the meeting and that you're bringing forth today. I just wanted to say that it was our second meeting since the pandemic hit, and the first meeting was, I forget, sometime in I think October. I wasn't present at that one, but this one was November 12th, and we had on the agenda, really the big thing was to create topics for the that the CAB is going to be involved in for primers of well, I'm going to let Leslie talk about that, because I am really the whole that was all new to me, that part of the what the Empowerment Committee was doing. And what I want to say, though, is we blended in those topics, like we attached them to the work that the subcommittee had done around the Civic Engagement Academy, which I was very glad that we were able to do that, because we had worked a lot on that. And we have a question to ask as well on these topics. And I wouldn't mind hearing, what the ask is of the group. But we also, and I do want to clarify that our meeting actually was not, I didn't leave early. We actually went way over than the time we were meant to go. And I just want to call that out, because I felt bad for leaving, but I think we were going on to a half hour extra. So, and we hadn't planned it. So that's all. Thank you.
I apologize. I used the wrong word in the wrong place right there. You left on late. we were already going late, so I appreciate that. And I do want to leave it open, actually, because member Harper and member Roberts were on this subcommittee well before myself, and so if either one of you want to present the information, I think it might be more valuable, because you have more context with this list.
Want me to do it, Robert?
Go for it, Vince.
Okay, so we had originally, as we discussed a little earlier, we had looked at a number of topics for an academy, sort of a civic engagement academy that we would do for the community before the pandemic. And as we were fleshing out what we wanted to do in terms of the academy, the pandemic hit, and it seemed like it was a lot of there was too much to do in terms of an academy. And so someone had the idea of this short video Civic 101 topics that we would shoot these. I'm hoping for 3 minutes, 3-minute videos covering important topics that we felt that, or not just we felt, but the committee and the community felt that would be good topics that people need to know related to just civil engagement. And to get these videos and produce them ourselves, tend to, I think we're writing scripts and maybe acting or getting other people to act. Still thinking that one through, right? So long story. So as what you see, oh, sorry. Does everybody see the Civic 101 video topic list? Okay. So as you can see, we had quite a bit of topics that we had massed in our work. And so as we were rounding out the meeting last on the 12th, we were just about ending, but then we said, okay, we need to flesh this out just a little bit more and get the topics into more more things that we felt that we could manage and that were really important to people, and wanted to prioritize what we wanted to share with the community. And so we ended up with the list that you have before you, and we had them in a tier 1, which is the buckets of 3 buckets that we wanted to look at in terms of these videos. And so the first one being City and Santa Rosa local government organization, and basically, dealing with everything from the city manager, city council, city charter, just basic differences between city and the county government, and et cetera. So, how policy are made, and that kind of thing was the first bucket that we came up with. So we lumped everything together to kind of fit into that bucket. And then the next area that we looked at was city council and boards. And so what exactly does the city council do? What's the mayor do? How do people run for council? How do I engage? Maybe everybody has going to have their district representative, but how do we engage our district representative as well as the whole council? Because we need to be able to function as a whole city council. And so to name a few, what does the board of commission do? Just kind of general understanding. And then the third element was just community engagement and advocacy. And so how do we influence change in our community? How do we get involved, civically involved? How do we get involved with, everything from how to make our city healthier and safer, understand, what's the equity initiatives in our city, and how do we get engaged? And so those are the 3 big buckets that we put together. And then we had our tier 2, so information for inclusion in the Civic Engagement Academy. So these are more complicated and other topics that we felt that were important. However, they probably were maybe they needed another department to really do the work on it, and so those included everything from finance to budget. So that's how we broke those out: public safety, economic development, planning, housing, community services, city infrastructure, and then we had other suggestions of what might be interesting. So most of this came out of our subcommittee. There was, I believe, is it Cherry Street, Greater Cherry Street Neighborhood Association had submitted some ideas or topics for conversation. So what we wanted to do is to be able to break these down. So we just didn't give you a mass of topics that you would have to go through. We really wanted to break it down and then figure out what we wanted to do in terms of our priorities for the videos that we want to produce for the community. Did I get that right? Okay.
Thoroughly right. That was awesome. That was a lot of information, and I would add to that, being that member Carobang talked about our ask. Our ask is, correct me if I'm wrong, any of the members from the subcommittee, is to get your input on these, if we have left anything out for our videos. So just thinking of those first three buckets, I like the term bucket that Member Harper gave to them: the City of Santa Rosa local government organization, the city councils and boards, and the community engagement advocacy. Obviously, it would be a lot to include all of that information for 3 minutes, but if there is something that's just glaring that's missing when you look at that under those topics, please let us know. Or just if it looks like we're just completely headed in a wrong direction. But I think Member Harper did a wonderful job explaining that we're speaking to the community and engaging them in these really small informational videos about what the city is.
I will also add to this in that a lot of this, yes, was created by the subcommittee and the initial conversations around the Civic Engagement Academy, but it's also supporting what we're hearing in the listening sessions as well. Information that residents want to learn about. Things like, how do I make a public comment, or how do I participate in a city council meeting, and why should I? We also observed that during public comment over the summer in some of our council meetings and other boards and commission meetings that there was a confusion around, well, why isn't the council responding to me? Like, I'm making this comment, you are just are you not hearing me? So really kind of spelling that out, like why that dialogue might not happen at a city council meeting, or why it can't happen at a city council meeting or board and commission meeting. So it's really supporting what the community is asking for as far as education around these different topics. I will also say that I'm looking at the list here, that each individual bullet point is not going to be its own video. Hopefully we'll be able to put certain things together into a video. I'm looking at, like, how do I make a public records request? Obviously that will probably be its own video, but other things, involving like city history and basic information, etc., how to contact staff, that probably will fit into one video.
Great. Is that kind of conclude the presentation of the summary, where we can invite some comments and questions? Okay. Do any of the CAB members, Member Cruz?
One thing that I would be wanting to know in this first section, and if you can, why aren't the citizens able to vote for the mayor? Why do we not vote for a mayor?
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think we brought that up in the subcommittee and we forgot to put it down, because I remember mentioning it, because people are confused about that, especially because Windsor does vote for a mayor.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
And you said to go in the first part? The first topic?
Yeah, it looks like in the first section. And how would you change it if the public wanted to change that?
Got it. Okay.
I think like, did you want an answer?
No.
Oh, not now.
Other member comments or questions, reflections? Member Roberts?
Yeah, I wanted to give the members not on the committee a chance to speak first, but so I like the direction we went. I originally was thinking, like when we were first focused on the academy, we could break that up into departments and have department reps helping present the content for the academy, and then when we switched to videos, I was still in that mindset. But I like the direction that we moved to. I just want to throw out this idea. I'm not sure if it would have any support, but with the tier 2, all the tier 2 stuff, I know there's a lot of information, but I was wondering if it would be worth having a video of just an overview of these services, not going into specifics, but I feel like there's a lot of people in the city that don't even know a lot of the services that the city provides. So I thought instead of leaving all this out, we could just give a very brief summary in a separate video. Yeah, just throwing that out. That idea right there.
Member Cruz?
I like the direction you guys went as well, because if these are on video or links that you could just get little snippets of, you could self-pace your own little tour of city government and hit the topics that really interest you, and self-guided tour basically. But I like it, and you're covering a lot of ground here, things that I never even thought of. One thing on the city boards and commissions, isn't there a law in California that says that there has to be a certain amount of women on boards and commissions, and how does that affect us? And do we take that into account? I thought there was a law out there.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
That's new to me.
It is a new law, but I think that those are boards, corporate boards. So it's not government boards and commissions. I think it was instituted 2 years ago, if I'm correct. So in 2018. And although it does bring up a great point, especially since we were talking about equity and social justice earlier, and the equity office at the County of Sonoma, or the new equity office and the new equity office director, is that may be in the future, and that we also maybe have a discussion at some point in time talking about when the charter is up to be changed, influencing or commenting on how the city, let me say this correctly, how the city does business with outside agencies and contracts, and what their equity lens is. And because like the city and county of San Francisco has different criteria based on equity issues around, women, LGBTQ, other marginalized classes, and thank you for that. But so we actually, I see you. So we, if that would ever be something that our city would then write into our charter about how we deal with, and if it does do that, then that would probably affect boards and chairs or boards and commissions as well. There's a lot in there, a lot of legal issues, but didn't know.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say a whole lot about this just because I don't have a lot of information, but I will bring it to Magali so that she can bring it back next month. But the city is in the process of contracting, and I don't know where in the process it is, but looking at contracting with an organization to start the initial planning and groundwork for either an equity officer for the city, an equity office, or other, right? We don't know what it's going to look like yet, although it was mentioned as a priority in the budget sessions for when the council was talking about this over the summer. And it's also one of the tier 1 priorities for the council. So I will make sure that Magali brings some information back next month to the CAB, or I can send out even an email as well if I get information before that. But I want to make sure that any member of the public that is participating in the meeting also gets that information. So it'll come to you guys in both ways, I guess is what I'm saying. I just don't have the information on it to be able to answer questions and really give you the full picture of what that looks like.
Thank you, Danielle. Member Carobang has to leave us soon, so I'd like to move this along, and if possible, the agenda is asking for action. We do need to hear public comment if there is any on this item.
No public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you for that monitoring. It's not clear to me what action we are asking.
I don't think there's an action. I think it was just to give feedback on the list.
Okay.
To see if there's anything else that we're missing.
I would like to provide input. I'm a bit of a muller. Is it possible to continue this onto the next agenda?
Yeah.
So that between now and our next meeting, we can contribute. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So great. So there are no action items on this. So if Member Carobang needs to excuse herself, that I think would be okay.
We will lose one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Member Carobang.
Can I just propose that people can send us comments, like edit that, add comments to the document and send it to us in between as well? That would be useful.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on to agenda item number 7, which Co-Vice Chair Graves will facilitate.
Okay, thank you. So item number 7, moving a little quickly here, future agenda items. We're looking ahead to the Sonoma County Commission on Human Rights report, and potentially in 2021 January. The Community Empowerment Plan goal, you shook me off. Community Empowerment Plan Goal 1 report, including listening session data, and that's in February 2021. These are all just written on paper, and they are not written on stone.
Yes.
Chiseled into stone. So I just want to say that so that Danielle feels very comfortable. The third item would be the South Park Neighborhood Community Building Group. So that one has kind of been held over for a while now. Getting to that, hopefully in the future. Community Engagement Division Strategic Plan. And lastly, the Racial Equity Training. So is there any other comments by members? Member Cruz.
Do we need to put on the agenda in December, or if we're having a meeting about the mentorship program, or are we gonna say yay or nay on that and give a bullets of just things that mentors should be doing, responsibilities? It's hanging out there. I just want to know, what are we doing with it?
Maybe the expertise at the next meeting, we can throw a list together of just proposed responsibilities, bring it back in December, and finalize that item.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a quick update, and I'm just the messenger, so please go easy on me. We learned today that the human rights report is being moved along with the protest use of force report to March 23rd. And that's why I initially, when I stated the date in December, I initially said it's tentative. The city attorney's office is still working on that use of force in the protest report. So they need additional time. However, the after action report, which I'm not One is very specific to use of force, and then the after action report kind of looks at all of it. That is coming in December, and that original date, I think it was the 15th of December. So that's still happening. The other two items they want to present together. And we're guessing they're also waiting for our recommendations for the community empowerment plan as well. So that is coming in March. And so that will move the CAB's date when you'll be able to, since the council wants to hear it first, it will move the date back for you guys.
Understood. So the council is March 23rd, and it would move it farther into the future. Member Roberts, and I did see you, Co-Vice Chair Moore.
How dare you, Danielle? No, I'm just kidding. I'm wondering if there is more reason given about why we need to wait for council to review it. Because I feel like one of the reasons this board exists is to provide input to council, and
yeah,
I feel like that should take place before they make policy or officially respond to the report.
Yeah.
Do you think it would do any good for us to request to be able to work on it now?
My suggestion to you would be to reach out to your appointing council members and really have that conversation with them about this. The only response the only answer I can give you is from the city attorney's office, in that, city attorney and the mayor both agree that they want the full picture. So, because the Human Rights Commission report has allegations of use of force in that report. So they want the use of force investigation report to be presented alongside of it, so they have all of the information before they make those, before they make any decisions or have any discussion. And without that report, they don't want any other board and commission receiving the report. That's all of the information I've been given, and the justification for that. So it's a legal issue. So I would recommend talking to your council members about it if you want it to come to the CAB beforehand.
So I did see Co-Vice Chair Moore and then Member Cruz, and just a quick note. So we are going past our time, and we have a member that needs to be leaving. So keep that in mind.
Thank you. I thank you, Danielle, for explaining a little bit further with the information you have, because my first inclination is this is ridiculous that we are being instructed to wait to hear this, especially when this was brought to our attention several months ago. Unfortunately, I feel like it lends itself to a lack of transparency, a lack of willingness. It has very bad optics to be constrained by the legal recommendations, and I don't understand that, so I will look into that more.
Sure.
So I wanted to go on record saying that, because I think it's important. We heard, 4 hours of public comment on this, with the community pleading, directing us to look into this, and we have not. And yet we have devoted hours of staff time for community listening sessions on health, racial, social justice issues, but we're not hearing this. So I acknowledge that there must be legal issues to it, but I still think it's, I'd like to request that perhaps we get a more formal statement from the council on the delay, And why is it being delayed? We're not getting an answer on that. So, okay, so that's enough of that. A future agenda item that I would like to see is a more robust report from our chair from the monthly, what used to be a luncheon. I'm sure it's now just a dry Zoom meeting at this point, since we are definitely in COVID. And I say that not to, kind of criticize the information we are getting. I'm just thirsty for more. I think that staying connected to the council and kind of getting some broader context of what some of the other boards and commissions and what the mayor's thinking is, I would love to hear more. So I'm just thirsty for that. So if we could make that a monthly agenda item and give it some time, rather than it just being a member update, I would be very appreciative of that.
I do want to give you guys a quick thing that Mayor Schwalhelm was really vigilant about these monthly get-togethers. It's conditional upon the mayor. So I want to let you know that whoever is selected as the new mayor in December may or may not do the monthly update. In which case it then becomes incumbent upon us to go on the city's website and look at other board and commissions. This is just an opportunity that was created with Mayor Corsi, but even then it wasn't always monthly. But there were times where it wasn't calendared for, there were gaps. But Tom was really determined about it when he went through the goals session and wanting everybody to be on the same page with the tier 1, tier 2 goals. And that's why he wanted these monthly meetings, because he wanted to make sure all of the board commission chairs were looking at the tier 1 goals and what their boards and commissions were working on in relationship. Like, in other words, he wanted to see measurements and metrics that align with the tier 1 goals, right? So that is one of the things that we would be reporting back to him of what we were doing. So each time we met, it was, in relationship to tier 1, tier 2 goals, what is the CAB doing? And those are very specific questions that we get asked. So absolutely, if the new mayor decides to keep me on his chair, or whoever she or he has as chair, if these go forward, I think it's a great way to add it to the agenda. But of equal, this could change. We might have a different setup next year. But if it does go forward and they continue with those meetings, absolutely, I'm totally cool with giving you guys a little more in depth on what they're working on.
And Member Cruz.
Sorry, I got disconnected. I just want to comment on the Human Rights Commission report and how the council wants us to wait for their response to the use of force. Our discussion might be more fruitful or more impactful after we hear the response to the use of force. How is the city responding to those allegations? And that will spur another round of probably disagreement from the public about how they responded. I think that it is appropriate for us to wait. There is hierarchy, and I don't want to wait either, but I think we have to let them do their thing before we jump into something. And it might be better for us to hear both sides of that before we have this discussion with the public. I just feel like it might be, it might roll out better. I don't think that's the right word to use here, but it might be a better sequence of events. That's all I have to say.
And my question would be for who? But that's okay. We're going to wait.
For the public. They're going to have both sides.
And Member Harper, did you have you're unmuted, so I'm not quite sure.
I have
Nothing, okay. All right. I don't see any other questions or comments, but I do want to thank everybody for all of those comments, because that was very fruitful, I thought. It was provoking, and Member Cruz, I believe that you make a really good point. As much as I want to see that report and discuss it. There needs to be an end to our means, and I think our end might be better well served to the community by waiting a bit as well. It's just unfortunate of the optics, and I completely agree with Chair Moore on that, or Co-Vice Chair Moore, that this has been a frustrating process for those that have been watching. So with that, is there any public comment on those future agenda items?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you for that. And let it be shown, I just saw Magali. Hello. We see you. We see your name. You are here, and we want to acknowledge you. And we are at the end, and that calls for adjournment. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for your patience in waiting.
Or motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, sorry.
That's okay. I'm calling.
Second.
I was just going to call it. Cheers. I think I saw a second in there.
Yeah, member Foster.
Second, everybody.
And Keith and Vince.
That's all. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.